So, Luke's chapter 5, verses 27 through 31. And after these things, he went forth and saw a publican named Levi sitting at the receipt of custom, and he said unto him, Follow me. And he left all, rose up, and followed him. And Levi made him a great feast in his own house, and there was a great company of publicans and of others that sat down with him. Okay, so we will pause there and we'll first look at the first two verses. He went forth, he saw a publican named Levi sitting at the receipt of custom, and he said unto him, Follow me. And he left all, rose up, and followed him. Question, first, who is a publican? What this word means? Who? Describe them as outcasts or sinners. Anything else? Anyone would like to add? How often the word publican is used? So they seem to be a part of the power structure, those who were of upper class. So those who were the critics, or whenever they're referring, because a part of the Gospels that we see, there's a struggle with Jesus, who was always acting counter to the power, right? So he was always challenging the power challenging him. Right, so he often acts countercultural as he challenged maybe I shouldn't say always, but he often acted countercultural because he also sometimes acts as part of culture, as in supporting the culture there. So there are some cases where he acted countercultural. And in these cases, we'll have the power, and the power persons with authority, the powerful persons in society. So you'll have the publicans, as mentioned, Pharisees, scribes, and so forth. The publican is often used to describe the tax collectors. So the tax collectors are referred to as the publicans. It's not a word which is popular. I think it's only found in the Gospels, and often only pop up, two places like here regarding Levi, and also Zacchaeus was also a tax collector. And the other places where it would come up would be like what Sister Pingy noted in terms of whenever the powers were in the crowd and they were referred to. So we'll find them in those cases as well. So the publican is often seen as part of the system, the hierarchy of society, part of this system, not just for them or how it is used, a system in a nice way, but an oppressive system, oppressive and colonial system. For the tax collectors, they did not only just take what was fair, but they were almost, could say, extortionists or scammers. See, such as in the case of Zacchaeus, how much he was willing to double up and triple up because of how much he took. So they were not fan of publicans, just as maybe today there are some jobs which I'll not name, but there are some jobs which some persons question if Christians should serve in those areas. So it was probably, maybe, I'm not sure if it's the best example, but probably in such a case, have certain jobs that persons believe it will challenge your Christian principles. Levi. Who is Levi? Another name for Matthew, right? And not Matthew, and referring to Matthew, one of the 12, right? One of the 12 disciples here. So it's another name. I don't know if one is nickname or 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 if it was a case like Paul, because for Paul's case, we tend to love say that Paul's name was changed. That's another Bible trivia. Was Paul's name changed? Did Paul have a name change? Persons tend to say Paul's name was changed at his conversion. Was Paul's name changed? No, Paul's name was not changed. So, you see here, Saul on the road of to Damascus, Damascus Road. He was knocked down. So his name was not changed. What happened is he has two names. One was his Jewish name, one was his Roman name, and he has dual citizenship, and he tend to use one when it's more convenient and depending on where he was. So I perhaps need to look into that if it's a similar situation. For Matthew seemed to be with the Jews, and at the same time he was of Roman status, so more or less he has Roman citizenship. So maybe it was a similar case like that, dual name there. But I'll need to check into it. Oh, yes. Mm, yeah, like it happens a lot. It happens. I mean, but if you don't know, you'll take it. You'll take it. Like for example, another one that is persons use commonly is that Moses wrote not just the old, well, some would even say like most of the Old Testament, but the best that some will say that he wrote the first five books of the Old Testament, and that is not so. He did not try. And there are several. How, if he wrote the first five books of the Old Testament, what about how he wrote his childhood narrative when he came on the scene in Exodus? And how would he write Genesis, creation, unless you're going to say he probably did some research? So how would he wrote about his childhood and when he was in his mother left him at the riverside and all of that? Also, the latter part of Deuteronomy speaks to his death. Who wrote that? uh, but there are some other deeper stuff though, which I may or may not share here. The deeper stuff in terms of it depends on the perspective that you're using to interpret the first five books. Are you seeing them as exilic books, books written from the exile, or are you seeing them as reflection on the wilderness, written from the wilderness? Which some persons believe that those books were written from the exilic experience in the exile, a reflection on why are we here? How did we lose our pride, our land, become landless, and also helpless, templeless, and so on. that would give a chance. And if it was while in exile, and if you are following Moses to be a historical figure, it would be long after Moses died, because they would have already gone into the promised land at Jordan, and then you have the years of the king until them lose and go and get gone. They gone into the exile and so forth. So you see that there are many years, probably centuries. But sometimes we grow up hearing these things and we just carry them forward without any research. But Moses did not write the Pentateuch. Pentateuch, the name for the first 5 books. Penta mean 5. First 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So and there's several other issues, but those are just some nutshell, just some little nuggets there. There's several where those came from. We could note. If you want to hear most doctrinal errors in church, is at funerals. At funerals, you hear all sort of stuff about the afterlife and everlasting life and what hell is. And sometimes even at crusades too, because sometimes the ones that like to talk about the second coming and the trumpet and so forth, and sometimes only if you know. So, and those are normally like in, say, Pentecostal circles, and sometimes lay persons, depending on the case, right? So the traditional churches tend to have sound reflection, but of course persons are not always attracted to these. So we have looked at Levi, the publican. He was at work. Jesus extended a call. So we could say the message is a call or an invitation. To what was Jesus inviting him? So what is the message here? What is the focus of this passage? One of his followers, follow me. And what other words we could use to replace, other synonyms we could use? Follow me, followers. Any other synonym? Disciple. Could say a disciple. So in terms of this invitation, we can look at the invitation in 2 ways. So one, we could look at the invitation in terms of invitation to salvation, or we could see it as an invitation to ministry, call to ministry or mission. So there are 2 ways, 2 possible take or perspective, 2 approaches to this passage. So let us look at it, one, in terms of the mission of ministry. So a call, we could look at first, the call is started or initiated by who? No, Levi is being called. So, all right, let's say, all right, I'm calling Sister Coy. I call Sister Coy. Who, in this case, made the call? Right, Pastor called Sister Coy. So in the passage, who was calling Levi? Who made the call? Jesus. So that's the first to know that the call is initiated by Jesus, or the call is initiated by God, the divine. So the invitation is, so let's say if we're looking at it from the other perspective now, which is to salvation, same, that invitation to salvation, it comes from God. Unless Christ draws you to himself, no one can come. Isn't that what the scripture says? It is. Before we were thinking of him, he was thinking of us. So, we look at the divine initiative, that it is God who makes the first step. It is God who makes the call. Right before we're thinking about it, God was thinking about it. All right, so the divine initiative, who made the invitation. The other observation, or maybe I should ask, is there any point that comes to mind about this call? What are the strengths or challenges about this call? The scribes and the Pharisees, they were? They were? Oh, well, well, that's further down. We don't want to reach into the next section. They were murmuring, but the immediate is not necessarily the call they were murmuring there, but they were murmuring about the party that was being held. So we haven't reached the party as yet. So just the call, just dealing with the call first. So he was sitting at his job, and the call came, call to mission. So the call is someone to something else. What do we notice about this call? He was at his job. He left it, so we could say that the call is disruptive. The call is disruptive. It disrupts our agendas. The call is disruptive, and the call is inconvenient. I have been saying that ever so often. Do we think that this call, because we can look at it and say that, because from now when we're reading it, to read it in our devotion or Bible study like now, it sounds nice. Jesus, see him and said, follow me, and you're like, wow, and it just followed. That is just so nice. It makes a nice narrative. But in reality, it is inconvenient. If we in the reality, and if we look at even our experience, the challenge to engage the mission, it is inconvenient. Persons, even in ministry and church life, with various activities, and person will tell you, oh, me have this, me have that, and me can't do this, and we find the excuses. Look at him. Where are the excuses? We could look at how did he respond? What was his response like? So the call is disruptive. It's a divine initiative, and it is disruptive, right? And so these are principles that we should note in us. I normally let them sound so simple until the exam comes. Not exam, the test. Let me not let it sound so hard. But when the test comes, that's when he said, oh, we see the gravity of the point which was made. So if we look at all the call narratives in Scripture, even with the prophets, it's the same. It is God who makes the first step. It is disruptive and so on. If we even go at, say, Moses and the burning bush experience, who made the first step? It is God who did something to try to get his attention. Right? God did something, and it was through the burning bush, which is a symbol of the Holy Spirit. So God made the first step. And even with Moses, the same burning bush, it was disruptive. Because Moses was about his family business. He was carrying out his family's sheep and taking care of his sheep. And here comes the call. He had plans, and probably he was going to inherit the business, the family business, and all of that. And here comes this plan, which disturbed what he had. Was it convenient for him? Could say that. You can see that he made a lot of excuses, but you could compare even with say Moses' attitude as compared with Levi's attitude, did he make any excuse here? Or maybe he did and that was not captured, who knows? But the writers seem to be making a point. Oh, yes, it's something you were saying. Right, so that was one of his. So in terms of the celebration, I see Sister Figgy well want the party. She want to go to the party. She said, "Move it along, Pastor. I want to get to the party." I like the party part of it. Okay. So the call is disruptive. Right? It sometimes comes suddenly at a time when probably you're not even planned for it. You could say that maybe he didn't even plan to see Jesus that day. And some of us, most times, we want it to come at a time when I can sit down and think about it, and I must go and work out my life first. And Jesus, I'll let you know if I can respond to you. Isn't that some amount of arrogance that we often display? Aren't humans so arrogant? You know, the Creator is calling and it must be on my timeline. You know, let me go home and think about it. I'll discuss it with my significant other and I will let you know if I want to respond to you or not. Right, you know, we humans. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in that story, we could look at that and salvation too, and his attitude, his behavior, that he was eager, or he was thirsting for something. And we could even question whether he was even sure what he was thirsty for, but he just knew that something was missing, and he wondered, who is this Jesus figure? The call is inconvenient. The ministry is inconvenient, but persons want it to be convenient. It's supposed to be convenient, you know, and so these are points which we should highlight. We look at him, we could say that his response was, how did he respond? He was immediately, he didn't hesitate. He dropped everything. So we could look at the fact that he surrendered all. So he's a perfect example of the surrender all. He surrendered everything. He left his job. And so we could say that's some faith because he was stepping out in the unknown. Because to walk away from your job and you don't really know, and you just hear this stranger saying, follow me, and you somehow, you think that this is a call from the divine to participate as a disciple. So it takes faith, stepping out in the unknown. In verse 28, it also emphasized, the writer made mention that he left all. Certainly the writer is trying to make a point. It takes some effort because he get up. And it shows that in responding to the invitation, whether it is invitation to salvation or a call to the mission, it takes effort on our part. Some of us, we just make a lot of excuses and we can't help with this and that. Whenever Jesus is about to act, whether it is healing or salvation or a call or so forth, he requires effort on our part as well. Yes, God is the one that strengthens us, but in the partnership, it requires effort on our part as well. He responded in following him, becoming a disciple. So, in response, yeah.
Do you think he knew at the time that it was Jesus?
In terms of the full worth, I would say no. Because certainly in terms of as knowing him as the Christ, knowing him as a Christ, clearly scripture would have said that they don't fully understand that what Jesus was saying to them and teaching them. Remember, even at the resurrection, he said, you remember how he said this to you? So they weren't fully sure who he was. So Yes, he would know that this is a popular figure. He's creating some buzz around town. He's hearing stuff about him. So yeah, he would know him by name, know that yeah, this is Jesus, and he's a rabbi, he's a teacher. But in terms of his worth, um, you know, we probably ask somebody, you know who me? you know, you might see the person name and all of that, but do you know the person in depth, the full
The fisherman. I don't
worth?
think they knew it was Jesus.
Exactly, it was, you realize it was afterwards how they
Yes.
responded, say, depart from me and those
Yes.
other stuff, because when they realize the divine effect that right here in my presence is actually the Son of God,
Yes.
right? It comes full force. It's just like even us as disciples. It's a question that would make a good crusade sermon. Do we really know who Jesus is? Do we know Jesus? As disciples, a part of our reflection, say here at Spring God Baptist Church, we think we know Jesus, but do we really know the full worth? And he said that what he can do, he could do far more than we could ever ask. Do we fully know who he is and what he can do when we really have faith? This is a probing question. Um, Times of doubt and uncertainty, do we fully understand? Even at the beginning of Corona, do we fully understand who Jesus is when he said that I will be with you always? When he said that even when you walk through the dark valley, I will be with you. Even in the valley, I will be with you. Do we fully know him? So yes, we can call his name and so forth, but do we fully know the worth of the name? Do you think we?
No, you're asking that question, River. If we really know who Jesus is.
Yeah, it sort of sound
Maybe
like
not enough.
it sort of sound like his sort of question. I can imagine. I don't remember that in particular, but whether I remember or not, it's kind of sound like his kind of thing, though.
If we
Um,
really know who he is.
yeah, I know he normally talk about the light and on the road and so forth, and questioning living. I know a question that yeah, but I think that would fall under his list. It would be something that he would.
I was saying, my husband and I were watching television Sunday morning, and this program came on, this Christian program. The service that came on Sunday morning on the television.
Mm, mm-hmm.
One of them, where one of the preacher, like this person would come up now and said, he has this lame foot or whatever, and then preaching and then doing what he does, the foot would get better. And I was there cooking and listening, and like came around and I said, I'm been working for
So a person have a foot issue in the worship in the congregation,
congregation, yes.
and came up to the altar
Yes.
for what for healing, and
The pastor would pray and this person would get better. And
immediately
the pastor
there and
said,
then.
run, skip, jump, whatever.
That's a Jamaican pastor,
Yes.
or cause see some of those in the African.
But yes, it's not that nice one. You went church.
Oh, Mark Stewart.
Mark Stewart.
Okay.
Then put it together first, friend.
Eh?
It is planned or something.
Right.
In the kitchen and I came
What I know happen is the psychology as well, in the sense that if not even planning the exact way like Sister Ping is saying, but cultured persons, we are more cultured how we are. All right, say for example, as Baptists, we are cultured to behave a particular way. So if somebody come in here and start to shout, all right, say if you're chanting a song and you said, He's coming, the man of sorrow, now exalted and high, and so forth. Person sit down, look. It's so nice, but they sit down, they engage because it's not Baptist to sing like that. But catch the same person about 4 o'clock. There is a street meeting with somebody down the road singing the same, and you see the person that's singing, and you're like, you wonder, wasn't the same song was singing a few hours earlier? And exactly, exactly. It is. We are cultured to behave a particular way. So it's the same with those. The persons are cultured. Even they used to have this. Well, he's still there too, but I'm not seeing it being aired on like TV before when I had access. But this stout man in Kingston, and he would just. There's a line and the person is go, and everybody just start drop back, and then somebody was trying to make a gimmicks about it, and he was preaching, and the preacher did an illustration and comes up, and so those members were doing that little jump back thing too, but they weren't seriously being blown back, they were just trying to tease the other man. So So there are some, mind you, the spirit is genuine to you, and there are some persons who genuinely move, but in the mix of it, you do have some cases where persons are cultured. I have even been at churches where I observe persons as they get up, they say la 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 la, 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 in terms of shouting and some stuff that they say, and then as they sit down, woof, quiet, nothing. I wonder, okay, this person is so cultured, it's so cultured. I'll leave it at that. It's so cultured. So it happens. We are cultured more than how we think we are, you know.
Deep in your subconscious, in your mind, I'm going to just say something. It's for example, you're feeling ill and you have gone to the doctor. And even before you start taking the medication, you feel better. It happened to me.
Yeah, the mind and your mind. If you tell yourself that you can get up and say, oh, boy, today is not gonna be a good day, and immediately you start have headache, and you start when you think about so and so. So your mind, right? Your mind controls your muscle and pain, and if you just think negative about certain things, so it's that persons are cultured. The way how we play the drum a particular way, keyboard a particular way, there is a culture and expectation. So if persons will be up there tiring, and persons will respond in particular way because it's the culture to do that. And there are other body language that persons will do, and as it's almost like you press the remote. Immediately the song stop or whatever. It's